the simple bar of soap, that humble, slippery rectangle sitting by your sink. It's the first and last line of defense against a world of questionable doorknobs, sweaty handshakes, and whatever the heck was on that subway pole. We lather, we rinse, we repeat, and we emerge smelling like a mountain rain or a cool Arctic breeze. Scents that don't actually exist in nature. But we're not complaining. We are living in a golden age of clean. But this obsession with personal hygiene is a surprisingly recent development. For the vast majority of human history, getting clean was a vague ambition at best, and a dangerous, messy science experiment at worst. They didn't have soap. So, what did they have? Dirt? Rocks? Harsh language? So, put down that bar of lavender oatmeal exfoliating goodness and join me. We're about to take a journey through the stinky, sticky, and sometimes downright bizarre history of how people tried to not smell like a walking compost heap. This is the story of what humanity did before there was soap. Our story begins around 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia with the Sumerians. Now, these folks gave us writing, the wheel, and the 60-second minute. But they also, probably by accident, gave us the world's first soap. And I promise you, you would not want to wash with it. See, the recipe for soap is actually pretty simple. You need a fat or an oil, and you need an alkali. The Sumerians had both. They cooked with animal fats, and their fires produced plenty of wood ash. So, imagine this. A big cookout. Animal fat drips from the roasting meat and mixes with the alkaline campfire ash below. It rains, and this greasy, ashy goo gets washed into the river. Some ancient Mesopotamian doing their laundry downstream notices that this weird sludge actually helps get the grime out of their wool tunics. This is the birth of soap. But let's be very clear. This was an industrial-grade degreaser. It was a caustic, gritty, unperfumed lump of sadness. You used it to clean your textiles, not your tender bits. Using this stuff on your skin would be like exfoliating with gravel and regret. The Babylonians inherited this recipe and even carved it onto clay tablets, the world's first and least helpful DIY tutorial. But for centuries, this soap remained a tool for cleaning things, not people. It was the ancient world's Dawn dish soap, great for oil spills, terrible for skin care. Meanwhile, down in Egypt, they were taking a completely different approach. The Egyptians were obsessed with purity, appearance, and not smelling like the wrong end of a camel. For them, hygiene was a status symbol. They weren't messing around with gritty ash paste. They were having a full-on spa day. Their secret weapon was a magical salt called natron, which they harvested from dry riverbeds. This stuff was a desiccant, an abrasive, and an antiseptic. It's the same stuff they used to turn their dead pharaohs into beef jerky, so you know it's effective. They would grind this up with animal fats or vegetable oils to create a cleansing paste. This wasn't really soap in the chemical sense, but it was the world's first high-end body scrub. It would strip away dirt, grease, and probably the top 2 layers of your epidermis. Then, because this process left you drier than a history lecture, they would slather themselves in perfumed oils to moisturize and smell fantastic. Cleopatra was famous for this routine. She wasn't just a queen, she was a walking, talking heir. So while the Mesopotamians were basically power washing their clothes, the Egyptians were developing a multi-step skincare routine. It was abrasive, it was intense, but it was a sign of wealth and godliness. Being clean meant you were closer to the gods. Being stinky meant you were probably just Gary from accounting. And then you have the Romans. The Romans took the idea of public bathing and turned it into an art form, a business hub, and a national pastime. Their bathhouses, or thermae, were the ancient world's combination gym, spa, and social media feed. But here's the weird part. They almost never used soap. So how did they get clean? It was a two-step process. First, you would slather your entire body in olive oil. Just cover yourself in it, like you're a piece of focaccia bread about to go in the oven. The oil would loosen up all the dirt, grime, and sweat from your body. Then came step 2, the fun part. You'd take a metal scraper called a strigil. It looks like a curved bronze butter knife. And you would just scrape it all off. The oil, the dirt, the sweat, your dignity, everything. It was basically a human body squeegee. This collected gunk, a forbidden human cheese known as strigmentum, was then discarded. Or, if you were a particularly famous gladiator, it might be collected, put in a bottle, and sold to adoring female fans as an aphrodisiac. I am not making that up. Welcome to history, folks. It's weird. The whole process was a public spectacle. You'd do it with your friends, your business partners. It was networking, but naked and oily. So for the Romans, getting clean wasn't a private chore. It was a bizarre, full-contact social event. Let's bust a myth. The Middle Ages weren't a 1,000-year-long mud festival where nobody bathed. People did want to be clean. The problem was, their version of soap was terrifying. This is the era of lye soap. By now, soap makers in Europe, particularly in Spain and Italy, had perfected the recipe using olive oil and a nasty chemical called lye, which they made by dripping water through hardwood ash. The result was the first true hard bar of soap. The problem? Lye is incredibly caustic. If you don't get the measurements exactly right, you don't have soap. You have a chemical weapon. Using medieval soap was a game of roulette. A good batch from a master soap maker could be a luxurious item, scented with herbs and reserved for the rich. A bad batch, made by some guy down the lane? It could strip the varnish off a table. It had the personality of a drill sergeant. It would get the job done, but you wouldn't enjoy the process, and you might come out of it slightly scarred. So for most people, soap was an expensive, sometimes dangerous luxury. It was far more common to just wash with water and a rough cloth, maybe with some fragrant herbs thrown in to at least smell like you tried. Soap was there, but it hadn't yet become a friendly, everyday product. So what changed? How did we go from fearing soap to having a dozen bars in our bathroom? It took two things, a chemistry breakthrough and a terror campaign. First, the chemistry. In 1791, a Frenchman named Nicolas Leblanc figured out a way to mass-produce alkali from common salt. This made lye cheap and consistent for the first time ever. The Industrial Revolution kicked in, and suddenly you could mass-produce soap in factories. But cheap soap wasn't enough. People needed a reason to buy it. And they got one, thanks to guys like Louis Pasteur and Joseph Lister. They introduced the world to a terrifying new villain, germs. Before this, people washed to not be smelly. Suddenly, science was telling them that an invisible army of microscopic monsters was living on their skin, waiting to murder them and their entire family. This was the greatest marketing gift the soap industry ever received. Soap wasn't a luxury anymore, it was a weapon for survival. Companies like Piers and Lifebuoy launched massive advertising campaigns, often featuring stern-looking doctors, basically telling the public, use our soap or you will die of cholera. Your choice. And it worked. Mass production made soap affordable, and germ theory made it essential. Personal hygiene became a public virtue. Within a few decades, the simple bar of soap had gone from a caustic luxury to a daily necessity found in nearly every home. The world was about to get a whole lot cleaner and smell a whole lot less like a medieval barn. From an accidental grease puddle in Mesopotamia, to a Roman body squeegee, to a chemical burn in a box, humanity's quest to get clean was a long and messy one. For thousands of years, we tried everything: salt, ash, oil, and pure, unadulterated fear. Every step was a battle against the grime. Every bottle of body wash, every bar of soap is the result of a 5,000-year-long research and development program. They were all just clumsy attempts to solve a problem that we now solve before we've even had our morning coffee. So the next time you're in the shower, take a second. That foamy, fragrant lather isn't just soap. It's a modern miracle. It's chemistry, it's medicine, it's history. Be grateful that getting clean is now a simple, pleasant daily ritual, and not a bizarre social gathering that ends with you selling your own filth in a bottle.